Trumpian lies and distortions following that defeat. Well, which part was lies?
Yo, lads, y'all got some drama going on.
And which was distortions. Instead of actually making real, genuine change to help the lives of Aboriginal people, they're still crying.
Oh, shout out to the lads. Hold on, yo, lads. Somebody sent this video to me. And the video said, well, the actual message when they sent the video said, TT, I think you're going to find this interesting since you're into Australian history. Shout out to the lads. Shout out to the members. Join that membership. It starts at $1. Let's get it.
But first, tomorrow marks 1 year since the idea of an Indigenous voice to Parliament was overwhelmingly rejected at a national referendum. Dividing Australians by race was a bad idea. Thinking Australians would be persuaded to vote by an African-American basketballer, well, that was also a very bad idea. Remember this?
It's up to all of us to write the next chapter together. And we can start by writing one word: yes. Now the Australian people will have a chance to say yes to reconciliation and yes to constitutional recognition of First Nations people. Yes, we can make
Yo, what's up, lad? Y'all like this nigga?
history together. More importantly, we can shape the future together.
Yes, that was Anthony Albanese rolling the same old lines. But what we really want to see here is Shaquille O'Neal. Have a look.
Etc. And here he is. Hey, how you going? Good to see you.
Hello, Australia. Nice to see you.
Hello.
How are you? Nice to see you. I'm here in your country. Whatever you need from me. Congratulations, guys. And everyone knows Shaq loves Australia. I need that government clearance, too.
That'll be done.
He don't love Australia more than me.
It just never gets any more cringier, does it? Now, if Anthony Albanese looked small beside Shaquille O'Neal, he seemed to shrink as a Prime Minister as the referendum campaign wore on. He ignored bipartisanship. He chose to speak in slogans rather than make any principled kind of argument, and famously was promising to implement the Uluru Statement from the Heart, despite admitting he hadn't even bothered to read it.
So here we are 12 months on, and where are we? The Prime Minister has diminished, the nation is more divided than ever, and Indigenous affairs has all but disappeared from the national agenda.
It's extraordinary, isn't it? Here we are 12 months later, and I really believe that The Voice, James, was a real catalyst for this cultural disunity that we've seen since.
Yeah, no doubt.
The Yes campaign, firstly, they couldn't...
And you know what? That shit never works. When you start trying to separate folks and divide folks and making it seem like one culture is bigger than the next.
Couldn't even explain to us from the very beginning what a voice to Parliament was. I mean, we're talking the very basics here, what it was, how we're going to be voting, what it's all about, and then 12 months on, they're still complaining. I note today in The Australian, the Voice to Parliament architect Megan Davis has called for misinformation legislation to protect a future referendum from, and I quote, an onslaught of Trumpian lies and distortions following that defeat. Well, which part was lies?
Yo, lads, y'all got some drama going on.
And which was distortions. Instead of actually making real, genuine change to help the lives of Aboriginal people, they're still crying about it, they're still whinging about it, and they're still yet to accept the vote, the fact that 60% of us said no to this division.
That there were two women who wrote columns in the Weekend Australian, Megan Davis, who you mentioned, an architect of The Voice, and Senator Jacinta Price. And I thought when you looked at those two columns, the difference was stark. You've got Megan Davis 12 months later still whinging and whining that The Voice was defeated and crying misinformation, which is insulting to Australians.
Totally.
We weren't misinformed. We understood exactly what it was and we voted against it. Then you had Jacinta Price.
He said, no, we understood what it was and we wasn't rocking with it. Shout out to the lad. Yo, lads, I like y'all news. He sit my little pretty ass back, relax, and get into y'all news. Because y'all always talking about my news. By the time I get into some of y'all news.
Price calling for an audit of funds.
I tried to be cute and light. It ain't even like... I love y'all too.
Given to Indigenous groups, calling for an inquiry into land councils. And so clearly you've got one group of elites who 12 months later are just disappointed they didn't get the constitutional power they were after. Meanwhile, you've got people like Senator Price who's saying, what are we doing for Indigenous people?
Absolutely.
Which was supposed to be the issue. And I note Anthony Albanese has done pretty much nothing on Indigenous affairs since his referendum was defeated. It was all about a historical moment.
Correct.
It really wasn't about helping Indigenous people. And the proof is that since it was defeated, absolutely nothing has happened.
Correct. And the other thing that really bothered me in that article by Megan Davis today, she said, and I quote, she said that there were people on the commercial television stations that didn't even run. In the 6 weeks, she said commercial television wouldn't even run Yes campaigners. Now, I realise she's referring there to 7, 9 and 10. But can I just say, from a Sky News perspective, that is absolute nonsense because we were running the Yes campaigners non-stop. I was working in...
Talk your shit, Slime. They done pissed Sky News Australia off. I ain't never seen her get this aggressive.
News at the time, we were always interviewing Yes campaigners. We gave them the exact amount of time that we gave the No camp. So that is an absolute load of rubbish.
And we should point out that our colleague Chris Kenny, pretty much every night for the entire campaign, he was very adamant that the Voice was a good idea.
That's a really, really good point. And let's be honest, the Yes campaign were given a very good shot, James. There was millions of dollars that was spent on this referendum to start with, and the Yes campaign received nearly $50 million more in financial donations from the No side. They had huge backers, as we know, Qantas, major banks supported the Voice. So it was given a very, very fair go. So 12 months later to continue to cry poor is just ridiculous. Focus on the actual Aboriginal outcomes. Focus on these things instead of just whinging and whining, because that is what is dividing people.
And the whinging and whining has done nothing to bring people together. I think there's still a lot of goodwill from Middle Australia towards Indigenous affairs, but patience is wearing thin.
Yes.
And it gets thinner when people like Megan Davis, instead of accepting defeat in good grace and then saying, OK, what do we do to address Indigenous issues, just keeps complaining about misinformation as if we weren't smart enough to figure out dividing Australians by race was a bad idea from the beginning.
It's a tarnished legacy, that's for sure.
It's messed up, man. We're all Australian. It's messed up, man. We're all Australian, including me. Yeah? Subscribe for the vibe.